So guys, we just wanted to point out that these are only our perspectives
and what we've learned.
For educational purposes only. It's your choice to choose whether you want to apply the information we provided. Hey guys, my name is Burk and this is our first ever Beyond the Blind podcast.
My name's Cameron Anderson.
Today, what we wanted to discuss was breaking down our limiting barriers that are stopping us from or preventing us from success. Wanted to share our perspectives in hopes that it'll help you lead a more fulfilling life. The reason that we decided to start with limits is because we have our own fears coming up as we discuss this podcast. The point is to do it sloppy. Do it any way that you need to do it. Just take some form of action. Limits that we create prevent us from taking action.
Reason why you're not to your goals yet.
Number one reason that we place these limits is because of our dopamine prediction error. Our brain tries to attempt to predict how it's going to get its next dopamine hit. As dopamine is the precursor to every action, it ties in with comfort, control, safety, security, and knowing. So when we don't know something, or we feel like it's going to make us unsafe or uncomfortable, we decide not to take action.
Don't limit yourself to one thing.
There's not one way to do anything. There's so many options and possibilities that you could do in any area of your life. But yet our brains, in an attempt to stay comfortable, once again, limit what we perceive that we can do or the actions we can take to try to meet or reach that goal.
Because the possibility of your dreams coming true is there. You're just focusing on what you can't control or what you can't do. What can you do to get there?
Because where attention goes, energy flows. Our own limits coming up, which is exactly the reason we decided to take action and begin to create this podcast. That's where the idea for this podcast originated.
Get hyper-focused on the fear. Or, for example, currently, our fears of around like being nervous and talking in front of thousands, millions of people is coming up.
So our goal with this podcast today specifically is to discuss limits and break them down. I wanted to bring up some of our own. We decided we wanted to try to help build our wealth. That's one thing that we both want for ourselves. And the limits that come up within us prevent us from acquiring as much wealth as we would like to have. Because we perceive that there's only one way to do that. We go to work every day to a job that we hate. And maybe you don't hate your job, maybe you do. But I personally don't care for mine currently. I would like to have something more fulfilling. I'm hoping that through this podcast that we are able to find that fulfillment and help other people along the way. But more specifically with work related is I discovered that we perceive that we can only make money by going to a job every day to pay the bills. That's so limited. We're relying upon somebody else's creation in order to fulfill our need to just be able to squeak by and pay the bills and maybe do a few things that we love on a rare occasion. But what if we could do something we loved every single day? So I wanted to bring up the topic of limits and begin breaking those down and help you recognize, even in the job field, there's so many different things that you can create. We can create anything that we want, and we're placing limits on how many things that we think that we can do to make money, when you could have 100 different things at once, and every single one of them would be making you money. How fulfilling would that be to just do what you love and have money being generated the entire time you're focused on doing something that you love, and in doing those things that you love, it started to create the wealth that you were after.
Because the creation is there. You're just not seeing it. You're just focusing on where it's not. So where is it?
What limits would you like to remove in your life? What is the thing that drives you and makes you passionate What's the thing that helps you thrive in your life, that it's just like brings you the ultimate joy and passion? And even if you don't think that you can make money with it, how could you? Because we're all given a gift that we don't recognize.
Another term for that is passion. That's one of like my favorite words. Because when you have passion, think of how lit up you get. Go big. Where's the enthusiasm?
I was also going to say high enthusiasm. So yes, I'm glad that Cameron brought up that point. That high enthusiasm is what drives us to do the things that we're passionate about. And if we can become passionate in everything that we do, we're automatically going to become the person that we want to be. The passion that we have for life is what drives us and fulfills us to create the things that we want and the life that we want.
Because how enthusiastic are you at your current job? Now you might be, and if you are, that's a great place to be.
But if you're not, what could you improve upon? What would you like to do? And how could you remove the limits that you're currently placing on yourself?
I'd also like to point out, though, still have gratitude for your job. Because when you have gratitude, that puts you in a higher state of mind and you'll be even more creative. How can you leverage your job?
Gratitude also, when we have that, automatically takes away the threat. We cannot be ungrateful and grateful simultaneously. So when we have gratitude, your brain can't be in a place to where it's expecting anything. It's our own expectations that create the lack of gratitude. So what things in your life are you currently expecting to happen in a specific way before you can feel the emotion you desire?
I'd also like to add that can apply to action too. You create an expectation on what action or what external thing has to happen in order for you to take the next step. How could you still do it now, even with that problem or challenge now?
I'd like to share another example with me and my artwork. I'm a wildlife artist. I always found passion in wildlife art, and I really wanted to make something myself with that. But I didn't realize the number one reason that I was doing it was to gain significance from other people because of the value that I lacked in myself. And so the main reason I was even creating, even though I was still attempting to create, it was detrimental to me because I was trying to meet a need subconsciously that I didn't recognize at the time. So now I meet my need for significance so high that I no longer feel like I even need to paint. It doesn't matter to me whether I'm an artist or not. However, that is one of my strengths and one of my passions. So now that I've recognized that I was doing it for significance and I'm able to go inside myself and feel that need internally, and I'm not relying upon an external source to meet it, I can start to use my painting and my artwork as a towards. And I thought there was only one way that I could do that I could potentially make money. I thought that I had to paint what everybody else wanted me to paint just in order to make a sale. I've since discovered that, for one, if I painted what I desired to paint, the probability of making sales would probably increase because it's more authentic to who I am, and the passion for my paintings would be higher because of not feeling limited on feeling the need to paint something specifically for somebody else, but to be able to create what I desired, which would actually make my paintings more valuable, from my perception anyhow. I feel like that authenticity in my paintings would stand out and people would see that passion in my work. So I've since recognized that that's one more way to make money, was just by painting what I wanted to paint rather than painting what I felt like people wanted me to paint. That authenticity would stand out and I would probably have better sales. So then I thought that that was the only way that I could make money with my art. And I limited myself as to all the areas that I could potentially do that. I finally recognized, after reprogramming my brain through the things that we've learned through Fly, Fulfill Life Yourself, that there are so many possibilities of potential out there, and we just need to discover them by getting a clear head and a clear mind. And the way that we do that is by meeting our needs internally rather than relying on external sources to meet those needs. So I've since discovered that I could even create digital art and sell stickers. And if I sold 1 million stickers for 50 cents a piece, that's $500,000. That just completely blew my mind to think, okay, well, if there's 8 billion people roughly in this world, and I sold 1 million stickers for 50 cents a piece, that doesn't seem too unrealistic. And even if I didn't sell that many, that's one revenue that I could possibly generate that's different than where my focus used to be. I opened up a new possibility because I removed a limit. Then I discovered or wanted to decide to make merchandise. So I created a YouTube channel. I plan to make merchandise that I'm going to sell on my channel. And that merch is another possibility. I do some digital art for that. People are able to print them on t-shirts and hats. And then I could potentially make some more income. And then recently I had a new idea to where I've thought about going on and making a painting and just having a counter on there that doubles the price of the painting each day. And it'll have a buy now button that people can buy it at any price they feel is affordable to them. And I will take that painting, deliver it to the client, and then half the money will go to myself and the other half the money I want to donate. And I feel like if I do that, that will generate more income because people will be passionate about that charitable cause, and they'll know that half their money is going to a donation of some sort. And I just want to surprise people with where that money might go. That's just a creative thing I thought of, and I feel like people love seeing that generosity and that contribution. And if I'm able to do that and then record more videos of that, and they can see me giving away that money, that they might get excited about contributing to my cause. I bring up money because one of my limits is around money. That's always been a very detrimental thing to me when I focus on the thought of not having enough money. And it puts me into this fight or flight state of mind and confines my mind to where I put up limits in an attempt to stay comfortable. So it's not about the money, and I just wanted to bring that up, but I'm bringing up the fact that that's something that I've recognized that I want to work towards. And the only reason I brought that up was to share with you the areas of my life that I'm attempting to remove the limits in order to get to the wealth that I desire. But ultimately, it's not about the wealth or the money or whatever you want to say. Because when we're attempting to achieve a goal or an accomplishment, it's to feel an emotion. So we're chasing after an emotion and we don't even realize that on a conscious level. The whole reason you want that end goal or that end result is to feel a certain thing. You want to feel a certain way, and so you're chasing after something because your brain perceives that when you get that thing, then you're going to feel happy. Then you're going to feel that emotion that you desire. So the whole process of becoming is to feel the desired emotion while you're attempting to reach that thing. And if you can feel the emotion ahead of the action, it's more likely that you're going to get that action or that end result because you're able to feel what you desire to feel along the way. You become who you would need to become in order to achieve that or accomplish that goal. So it's all about the process and enjoying the process. We can find fulfillment in the process rather than the end result. If we reach the end result and the outcome wasn't what we were expecting, it's going to provide a lot of misery. Do you need to say something?
Yeah. I'll say I was all about the end result, trying to chase that end result. But the thing is, that is like an illusion, because when you get to the end result, then there'll be another thing to chase. Our brains love to go towards something, so it's about enjoying the process and enjoying every day. Because how would it feel to love every single day? Now, emotions may come up, and that's okay too, because it's not about covering up either. But it would still feel amazing if you loved most of your day, or I'd say all your days.
And how hard is it to be disappointed when you let go of all expectations? If you weren't expecting anything to happen a certain way, how disappointed would you be? Your life automatically becomes more fulfilling just because you weren't expecting to get a certain outcome.
Because you'll just chase it, and then you'll just make another one, and then make another one. And then you only enjoy the end result once. Whereas if you enjoy the process, you'll enjoy every moment. Put this in an example. Right now, a part of me is going, oh, what if someone says da-da-da-da-da? And it's like, well, you can focus on that, but you can also focus on how this is going to help a lot of people, right? It's where we're putting our focus. And that would be a limit. And so because there will always be that possibility. It's just you're choosing to focus on the negative things. And when we do that, it's just going to confine you. Because there's always a gain and always a loss in every scenario. There is a loss or a gain. And so when you're able to focus on the gain, you're going to keep moving forward, whereas the loss might be slower.
For example, we could use death. How could death potentially be a gain? That's something you think there's no way you can gain anything from death. Like, death isn't something that feels great. We don't obviously want to see people die or feel the pain of somebody's death. But the only reason death hurts is because you're focused on the loss of that person. If you focused on all the joy that that person brought to your life and everything that they offered while they were alive, and you celebrated life rather than death, then you found the gain in that.
Yeah, my dad's really been a great example of that. Like, he has always said to me, when he dies, he wants me to celebrate him. Not to be all sad. He's like, show up, have a party. Like, it's meant to be celebrated and to continue the growth, to continue his legacy, right?
Yeah, and that's great. Why wouldn't we want to celebrate somebody's legacy rather than focus on the fact that they're gone? The only reason that we see it as a loss is because we're focusing on all the neurochemicals that we're deficient in. We feel a loss of love and connection. We might feel insignificant when that person's gone. We feel out of control. We feel like we're no longer able to contribute to them or grow along with them. And those all tie into neurochemicals. And so when we lose that person and we focus on the losses, we create a lot of deficiencies within us. If we focus on the gains, we can fill all those voids internally and meet those same needs and feel the joy and have that gratitude for the life that that person lived.
Feel the pain too, though, if that's what you want. It ultimately comes down to getting to your goals.
So if you want to feel the pain, feel the pain. It's not to escape it. It's to recognize those motions and what's creating that discomfort within us and allow ourselves to feel it instead of trying to escape it. I tend to personally escape things oftentimes still. I do not like discomfort and I try to avoid it at all costs. So I focus on avoiding the discomfort rather than focusing on working towards what's going to make me comfortable. So I just wanted to bring that up, and that's something that I would like to do, is be able to find that internal comfort more frequently instead of focusing on all the things that are going wrong in my life. So that's another limit that I would like to remove. Cameron and I decided to bring up the limits today specifically was because of all the limits that we had going through our minds the last couple of days. We're trying to remove those limits because those limits only cause and create more confinement and more threats within ourselves and prevent us from feeling the way that we desire and ultimately attempting to achieve that end goal and trying to just enjoy the process along the way. So we started to remove our own limits the last couple days, and when we're rewiring our brain, we rewire our brain now around the possibility of growth. Growth is the most powerful thing, and if we work towards growth, then we're essentially limitless because we're not relying upon an end result to meet our needs. We're just growing in the process and enjoying it along the way.
Because if you had your dream life every single day, more than likely you'd probably actually get bored of it because you're not growing as much. And so what you actually want is that. You want that growth, right? You want that feeling of growth. And there's other feelings too that you probably want, but that's just one example. I've removed limits. I've gone like so much further. I feel I've gone further in the last 6 months than I ever have before in like the things I'm doing. I love to create games. That's one thing that I'm really also passionate about. And I've noticed, like, I'm about ready to launch one actually. And before I was spending years in that confinement, not to judge it though, because I learned so much from that experience as well. But now, like, I'm like there and I'm about ready to like be there, and I've just been enjoying the process too though. Like, I've had a lot of triggers with it come up. For example, I was hiring out developers, and some of the developers weren't responding back. And so I went internal and like, hey, what do I still have control over? Rather than focusing on, oh no, they're not there. Those are the limits that are stopping you.
Yeah, because when we place any type of limit at all, then it definitely stops our progression. Limits prevent progression. Why don't we use that as a term or an example? If we're not constantly working towards progression, it's because we have some form of limit in place. So how could you recognize what limits are currently preventing you from the actions that you want to take?
There's always progression and always growth, no matter what. We're always falling forward. We're never falling backwards.
It's only going inside of ourselves and recognizing how we're falling forward rather than feeling like we're falling backwards. We feel like we're falling backwards because we're focused on those losses. We're focused on the limits. When you focus on the limits and the losses, then you're not going to progress and move forward. You're going to stay stuck in the past, and you're going to keep on living in the past and having past thoughts, because your brain is meeting neurochemicals by having those past thoughts, because it doesn't know how to meet them differently. But when you learn about your brain and you understand how the neurochemicals work, and you start filling those voids internally, you start to progress naturally and move forward, because you no longer need to focus on the past to meet those needs. Your brain is no longer addicted to how you used to get the neurochemicals before.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that?
No. Limits is like, again, right here in this podcast, I'm having like some fears come up. A part of me is, and they're just actually my own fears and my own projections with my own belief systems, because those people may not even be thinking of that. We're projecting all the time because we think that they're a certain way, but they're always growing too every day. So whatever it is, can you truly be certain that they're thinking that? And even if they did, let them. Just let them and be your authentic self, because how empowering is that?
The reason that we perceive that those people are thinking those things about us is because as our brain is developing from early childhood development, usually up until about the age of 7, we're processing so much information, and we're just trying to figure out how we're going to survive. So our brain takes in the information in order to attempt to keep us safe and to keep us alive. And then we develop these patterns in our mind that we subconsciously go back to meet those neurochemical deficiencies every time we're not meeting them. And that's usually by going into places of judgment and wondering what other people are going to think about us and judging ourselves. And even by beating ourselves up, it's meeting those needs. It's just doing it in an ineffective way.
Judgment is just a construct. It's just a construct of thinking that you use to meet those neurochemicals. But you could also focus on how empowering maybe they're thinking of you. That's another one you could do. You don't have to focus on the judgment. Your brain is choosing to focus on that.
And the whole thing that's going into the brain, that's in the brain, that's making those decisions is our reticular activating system, or our RAS. And that's choosing what information we want to focus on in our conscious thoughts. Because the subconscious mind takes in 40 million bits of data per second, but the conscious mind can only focus on 40 bits of that. So the reticular activating system determines what information goes into our conscious mind and where we choose to place our focus. So you could either focus on the things that are negative in your life, and then your brain will show you more of how things are not working out in your favor, or you can choose to focus on the things that are positive in your life and the things that are working in your favor, and the things that you want to work towards. So we usually don't use the words negative and positive, but in this example, I feel like it's fitting.
There are millions of perspectives that you could choose to focus on, or millions of different droplets. Which ones are you going to choose?
Water droplets that Cameron just filmed and decided to focus on. We could focus on how bad we hate the rain, or we could focus on how the rain brings us joy. It's so nice to be out here getting a nice little sprinkle or drizzle or whatever you call it, and just enjoy being in different climate than what we would typically be in. Why do we only perceive that we can enjoy the heat or the summer? Most people enjoy summer. I personally hate it. I won't say hate, because hate's a strong word. And I would like to get accustomed to enjoying that warmer weather more frequently. But I love being outdoors, and I love this cold weather, rainy weather, snowy weather, all the things that most people would hate, I love. So that just gives you a little bit more perspective on how our brain works, and if we choose to focus on the things that we love, we're going to see more of that. If we choose to focus on the things that we hate, we're going to see more of that.
We are choosing to be unlimited and authentic. A limit I've had recently is a past relationship. And I recognize how much limerence that I was doing. Limerence is when you choose to please someone because you want to be loved. And subconsciously, I didn't know that was what was going on. But now I'm being more authentic, and I don't even know if that person would want to be with me because of how more authentic I am.
So it's kind of interesting when you look at that limited perspective. We go into most of our relationships being inauthentic to who we are in an attempt to please that other person, to make them feel happy or feel a certain way about us in order to try to have this relationship that we perceive as going to make us happy. And if you're being somebody who you're not, then how does that person that you are with in that relationship even know who you are to begin with?
Yeah, and we will do a lot of predicting on how it's going to be like with them, and that's where the arguing and stuff comes in, because it's not how you expected, right? And that wouldn't be true to their authentic self either.
Yeah, so allow them to be authentic and have the agency that they choose and feel the emotions that they desire to feel, while being authentic to yourself and feeling the emotions that you want and expressing yourself as the full version of yourself. Because if they know who they're getting, they can't be let down. And if they do get let down, they know exactly who you are, and them being let down is just their own insecurities.
Yeah.
So Cameron, what current limits do you have that you're currently working through?
Burk, my limits are around someone would want me for my authentic self.
So you're fearful, if you're authentic, you're afraid that nobody's going to want you?
Yeah, but I know that's my own oversimplified conclusion.
Okay. So how could you work towards finding somebody that wants that full version of you?
Well, the thing that I've noticed is just doing more of what I love, because the more I do what I love, then I'm more than likely going to attract someone whose focus is on those same things.
That's a great thought. I like that perspective. Why are you limiting yourself to a specific relationship?
Probably because of that prediction error. like on like how it should be, and I don't probably truly know everything about my own self on what kind of relationship I'd want at the core.
And I'm glad that you brought up the word should. How should your next relationship be?
I don't know. I see. Yeah, that's the thing. I obviously, in my perception, should or could be authentic to, like, it would be beneficial for it to be authentic to me, right? And just, rather than doing the limerence and like catering to someone just so you can feel that little bit of love. Because what tends to happen, from what I've learned, is when you hop in that relationship, then those other authentic parts of you come out, but you didn't discover them before, and so it creates a lot of collateral damages in the relationship.
And I just wanted to point out and bring it to your focus that you used the word that the relationship should be a certain way.
Right.
So how limited is a relationship when it should be a certain way?
Very limited, because if it was one way, it's not going to probably go that way, and it's going to really confine you.
So you can recognize how there's a limit even there.
Right.
When we place those expectations or those predictions on how we think that it should be, that is a limit in itself. And we're trying to attempt to remove all limits by eliminating fear. Fear is a limit. We're afraid to take action. We're afraid to do multiple things, and we're doing things subconsciously and subconsciously being afraid of things. And it's placing all those limits in our lives. And so if we remove the fear, we remove the limits.
So you're saying keep the curiosity, like with my next relationship.
Stay curious in everything you do.
Okay. All right, that definitely went deeper, so thank you.
Because if you take away curiosity, then you would be certain.
Yeah.
You can't be curious and certain at the same time.
Right.
So when you're certain of things, that creates another limit.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you know all the answers. That's why curiosity is so critical, because curiosity is another thing that removes all limits. If you're curious on how something would go or could go, then there's no limit on what could potentially happen. You're not placing judgment on things when they don't work out the way that you want them to, because you were never certain about them to begin with. You were curious about them. So being curious removes all limits.
Love that. That one's really awesome.
When curious for your past relationship, why, from your perception, didn't it work out?
Because I was trying to be authentic.
Oh, so you were pretending?
Well, I guess you could say that, but like in my mind, I was like trying to like do more stuff that I wanted now that I had the relationship, even though it'd be more beneficial to be authentic before, but I had no idea on a conscious level, so it's okay. But
if you were trying to be authentic, then that would be pretending, right?
right.
Because if you were truly being authentic, would you have to try?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's good. I love that. That's actually so good, because if you kept the curiosity within yourself, then basically you're going to naturally just be authentic. It's not trying to play some role, right? It's like role playing. Like, because when you like focus on something, you're going to naturally try to do that thing, and it's going to like mess with your head of being authentic and stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you're attempting to be somebody that you're not, which
Right.
is inauthentic.
Yeah.
So if you were being inauthentic in the relationship because you were trying to be a certain way or be a certain thing, then how is that allowing your relationship, the person you're in the relationship with, to see the authentic version of you?
Right.
And if you're not being authentic, then obviously when you finally become authentic, then what kind of deficits is that going to create in them?
Right. Unintentionally, obviously. So
Right.
lead with unconditional love, but yeah, I see what you're saying. So that definitely takes things a lot deeper in my own mind.
So if you went curious into your past relationship and tried to perceive where you feel like you went wrong, what inauthenticities would you find in yourself, and could you recognize that you may have been playing in your relationship?
What do you mean by playing? Like,
Because if you're being inauthentic, you were playing a specific role.
right, and that would be being unauthentic. Okay. Well, if I think about it for a bit, like definitely just more the growth mindset. Like I was always, in my perception of it, I was always trying to, like I was kind of afraid to truly show like my growth stuff, because maybe they would perceive it a certain way, right? So that's probably.
So you were fearful of showing the areas that you were attempting to grow because of the way they might feel about it?
Yes.
And in doing so, that is placing more limits and creating inauthenticity, correct?
Right, yeah. Because ultimately, like, that's why it's key, guys, to feel abundant. Because when you feel that abundance of love, you're going to naturally find who you're meant to, like, be with, rather than trying to play some role.
Let me ask you this, Cameron. Who are you meant to be with?
Good, great catch. That's a great catch, actually. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
Remain curious.
Remain curious.
If you feel like you're meant to be with somebody, that's that limerence coming back up again.
He caught one of my patterns. That's pretty good. Yeah, I did. See how unaware that we can be? Like, I'm being authentic here. I wasn't aware. So be aware of what you're actually saying and what stories you're telling yourself as well.
Because our words are huge. Even the wording that we use creates limits. If we say things that we have to do or should do or must do or things that we shouldn't do, or all those types of words that place a finished result, removes curiosity, because once again, then you're certain of that. People are being certain that they shouldn't do a certain thing or they should do a certain thing. When they're doing those things and they're using that wording, it's actually taking away the limitlessness, the curiosity.
Yeah, because ultimately, what if you were meant to, so good catch, what if you were meant to be with nobody? And like, then you are able, because you're not trying to play some role, you're not trying to impress, which that went deeper since he caught that. But you're not, because if you're trying to impress, then you're going to start creating inauthenticity. And it's about authenticity. So don't try and find someone. Just go along until you align with someone.
And ultimately, if you guys want something in a partner or a relationship, the best thing to do is to go internal and change that in yourself, meet that in yourself, and then you'll attract that. Because if you're trying to find love, more than likely you're desperate for it, and you're going to chase after it, and you're going to find anything that feels loving in the moment, but then what happens when it's not? You're going to feel like you lost the love. You're going to feel like you have to chase after it again to find it again. But if you just have it the entire time, why would you ever need to chase it?
Yeah, and again, it's not to judge. So if that happened, because I've done stuff like that, we've all made mistakes, and it's okay, because that was part of the process for you to become the person who you are today.
And I've done the same. We all do it. I think they say that 95% of the actions that we take are subconscious. So we've learned these patterns, and we've developed these patterns throughout our life. And we do the same things and have the same thoughts and same emotions daily. 95% of it is subconscious. So only 5% of the actions we take from day to day are conscious actions. And the rest of it is just on playback. We're just doing a routine and living the same life over and over again. But how do you change and become a different person if you're replaying the same patterns daily? We're basically living insanity, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So we do the same patterns daily, expecting to get a different result. But how are you going to get a different result? How are you going to get a different result if you continue to take the same actions?
Exactly. So just be authentic.
And be limitless.
We got see the sun. The sun just came out. Feels really nice. We can enjoy all the weather.
Yep.
So, had some ducks just pass by, but we were recording. So, brain's like processing now. It's like, dang, I was like it's super. I guess like my breakthrough around it is like, I'm just gonna feel for a sec. Because, like, there's that version of you, but that version of you wasn't, like, it was real, obviously, because you made it up, but it wasn't your true, authentic self. So, like, going forward, I know that I'll find the person, or I'll find someone who aligns, right? And that's not to, like, say it could never be, that person again, right? Because I've seen that happen, but it's just to see if the authenticity or the alignment's actually there.
Yeah, it's great, because that's the thing, is we're always doing the best that we can with the information that we have at the time. And most people tend to beat themselves up and judge themselves for past relationships or whatever when it falls apart and it doesn't work out the way that they were expecting, is because they feel like, oh, I could have done better. What should I have done? Why did my relationship end? Cameron himself is experiencing this currently. He tends to still beat himself up, and he goes back to those old patterns to meet a chemical deficiency that he hasn't caught yet. And the reason that we're doing that is because we're still living in essentially a state of limerence. We want that relationship with that person because we can't see what we did wrong. And we're still basically kind of living in that state where we're trying to be inauthentic of who we are in order to fill that void.
Yeah.
And
I would even say, so I did have a lot of those patterns. Lately, I've rewired a lot of them because I chose to work on those areas of my life. I just had other things that I was focusing on and kind of went out of my focus. Because notice, you'll focus on something, but then as soon as something else exciting comes along, you're focused on that instead. So again, it's not to cover up, but it may not serve you to focus on that thing anymore. So maybe just let it go.
I was just going to go back to what I was saying as far as we did the best we could with the information we had. We are always doing the best we can with the information that we had, because if we get presented different information, don't you think you're going to take different actions? But if you're currently doing things and you perceive you did something wrong, well, why didn't you do it better? It's because in that moment you didn't know any better.
Yeah, you had a different perspective and your focus was on something else. And I will say it's clarity. Clarity is what we ultimately want. When you can get that clarity, it removes limits like crazy.
So what clarity would you like in your life? What actions are you currently not taking because of the limits that you're placing on yourself? And how can you gain more clarity around those actions?
I'd also like to add back to the relationship thing. There doesn't have to be all this hate. What if there could just be all unconditional love for everyone? And authenticness. And you just grew from it. Like, I'm so thankful for it. It taught me so much. I wouldn't change it for anything.
So Cameron brings up love. There's so many limits around love. It's just absolutely disgusting.
Is that a judgment?
It's judgment on me. There's a limit. But anyhow, there's so many limits on love because as the brain's developing, taking on different perceptions, one person perceives that they need to be loved in a specific way in order to feel loved. But the other person perceives that they need to be filled, or perceive that they need to be loved in an entirely different way because of the perceptions that they developed. So they might be feeling insignificant in their lifetime or their childhood, and so if they feel insignificant, they feel unloved. So they feel like somebody needs to make them feel valuable about themselves, and if they do that, then they can love them. Versus somebody else who had parents that fought all the time, and they felt that they just weren't getting loved because from their perspective, they had so much hatred or so much violence or whatever going on in their life. And so they develop a perception. It could work two ways. They could develop the perception that they continue that same pattern and they abuse somebody, and they're doing that because they love them. It doesn't seem very loving, but it's their reactive pattern to meet the need for love that they haven't recognized. Or they could have a person in their relationship that they can be in a relationship with a person that they expect somebody to not abuse them or to respond a certain way in order for them to feel love. So love is so limited because there's so many different perspectives that our brain takes on as to how we should be loved. And if those needs for love aren't met in the way that we expect, then we don't feel loved. But what if we didn't have the expectation on how we perceive we needed to be loved and just accepted love whatever way we could and recognized everything as being love?
Yeah, and I'll add, there are so many perspectives of love, again, like he was saying. Like, there's romantic love, and love's like thrown around a lot in our society. So when someone says love, be aware of how they're actually trying to use it, because there's so many versions of it. I would say there's at least 100, if not thousands, like, of different versions of everyone. And some people may challenge, like, no, there's only like one way, but can you be certain of that? Because I bet you my perception of love is different than yours. Again, it's not bad though to have those different perspectives. It's just about gaining that clarity and understanding at what's behind the surface thing.
What's beyond the blind?
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, exactly. What was beyond the blind? So,
trying to think of.
Though, because a limit that we could say is we can't share. Because we don't know how to speak in front of a camera, but we're just attempting, and that's the biggest thing you can do. Just take some action, no matter how sloppy it is, because that would be a limit. The camera would be the limit there, and so we're just here trying. So you can think what you want, and that's okay, because that would be another limit. Just keep the curiosity going.
And how loving is it that we're here to share our perspectives with you guys to help try to improve your life and add perspective and fulfillment to you. And how loving is it that I'm sitting here with Cameron and he's taking in all these perceptions and getting to be a part of this conversation and feeling the love from me as we're out here creating this film.
Yeah, and vice versa. And like, it's us. We can choose to find the love. We can choose to try to focus on it. Because you just might not be focusing on that because you're hyper-focused on a certain thing, a certain way of how to feel love, right? And I could focus on judgment. And who even says that you're judging, right? Or that the other people are judging. It's just our own projections once again.
And from my personal experience, what at least I've discovered within myself and my family dynamic is complaining is the ineffective pattern to get love and connection. Because if a person's complaining about somebody else, it's typically because they feel a loss of love from that person. So complaining subconsciously is what the brain goes to a lot of the time to meet that need for love and connection. Because what do people do when they complain to somebody else? That other person usually comes to them and asks them how they're feeling, and then they feel loved from that. They take on the perception, oh, so this is all happening subconsciously, mind you. They take on the perception, oh, this person really cares about me. They must love me. They care. That connection is there. And so they get that chemical deficiency for love and connection, which happens to be oxytocin. They get that need met through actually complaining about somebody else to another person. And then the other person fills that deficit of love and connection.
Yeah. It's really cool once you start to understand this at a deeper level. And I've been going at it since 2023, and I'll tell you, it's been a process and a journey. And at first when I saw this, I was just like confused. But then as I kept going, like, man, now it's just like, whoa. So it just lights me up, and I love sharing.
And you can see how authentic Cameron is being now. He gets really hyper when he's authentic. Because he gets that high emotion.
The enthusiasm.
I get that emotion as well, but because of my need for comfort, it takes a lot to get me there. But I am being authentic with you. It's just that I struggle expressing high emotion because the way that my brain developed, And I perceived that I had to make myself smaller in order to keep my family happy, my parents happy, so that I wouldn't lose love and connection from them. So that's something I'm still working through. It's one of my weaknesses, is showing that high enthusiasm, which happens to be a neurosolidifier. So the more enthusiastic you can be, the more you can repeat that enthusiasm, which is another neurosolidifier, then the more you'll become that new version of yourself, that authentic version of yourself.
Yeah. When your weaknesses will become your strengths. I gotta say, it's really cool just being here and like sharing with you guys what we've learned, at least, because like we talk all the time and discuss like and how to go deeper with what we've learned, and I have so many breakthroughs, so it's really cool to actually just like do it on camera, you know, because now think if there was always a camera on me and I was afraid of that and I had a limit, then I wouldn't do it, right? But now that I'm doing it and I took the action, now I'll do it even if there was a camera, and that would be me being more authentic.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something that I want to work towards myself. I've struggled to take action. I recognize a lot of limits that I place on myself, but the biggest struggle for me is taking action because of all my fears and discomforts that come up. So the fact that I'm actually doing this right now and being here is an authentic version of me, because this is ultimately what I want to work towards my goals, and I'm getting over my fear and becoming more comfortable in the actions that I'm taking.
Yeah, he's finding certainty or in those actions. If you focus on that and show your brain just to draw you there, the curiosity in that way, then you'll take action.
So I know that I'm gaining certainty, and it's beginning to make me very comfortable.
Yeah, and growth.
Yeah, and that's a great thing too. Like I said before, if we associate all this to the growth that we're gaining, the growth that we're getting, it's easier to find comfort when you find comfort in growth, because growth is ever expanding. Growth never ends. We'll always be growing. We grow every second of every day. So, and it could go beyond life. I don't know what the afterlife is. I don't know if there is an afterlife, but I believe that there is. And I believe that that growth is going to continue. So if we focus on the growth that we're going to take throughout our life and expand upon that, how much more fulfilling is that and comforting is that when you know that you can continue to grow?